Please repeat word for word. Vishaha, means of living by production and distribution. Avartanta, generated. Tasya, his, the gigantic forms. Urvo, from the thighs. Loka vrittikari, means of livelihood. Vibho, of the Lord. Vaishya, the mercantile community. Tat, there. Udbhavaha, orientation. Vartam, means of living. Nrinam, of all men. Yaha, one who. Samavartayat, executed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. The means of livelihood of all persons, namely production of grains and their distribution to the prajas, was generated from the thighs of the Lord's gigantic form. The mercantile men who take charge of such execution are called Vaishyas. Purport. Human society's means of living is clearly mentioned here as Visha, or agriculture and the business of distributing agricultural products, which involves transport, banking, etc. Industry is an artificial means of livelihood, and large-scale industry especially is the source of all the problems of society. In Bhagavad Gita also the duties of the Vaishyas who are engaged in Visha are stated as cow protection, agriculture and business. We have already discussed that the human being can safely depend on the cow and agricultural land for the livelihood. The exchange of produce by banking and transportation is a branch of this type of living. The Vaishyas are divided into many subsections. Some of them are called Kshetri or landowners. Some are called Krishana or land tillers. Some of them are called Tilavanik or grain raisers. Some are called Gandhavanik or merchants in spices. And some are called Suvarnavanik or merchants in gold and banking. The Brahmanas are the teachers and spiritual masters. The Kshatriyas protect the citizens from the hands of thieves and miscreants, and the Vaishyas are in charge of the production and distribution. The Shudras, the unintelligent class of men who cannot act independently in any of the above mentioned activities, are meant for serving the three higher classes of their livelihood. Formerly, the Brahmana were given all the necessities of life by the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas because they had no time to spend making a living. The Kshatriyas would collect taxes from the Vaishyas and Shudras, but the Brahmanas were exempt from paying income tax or land revenue. That system of human society was so nice that there was no political, social and economic upheavals. The different castes or varna classifications are therefore essential for maintaining a peaceful human society. Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. Thank you for coming for Sunday morning Bhagavatam class. So today is also a very special day because it's disappearance of Sripad Lokanath Goswami, one of our great acharyas in the tradition of Gaudiya Vaishnavism. So I don't have much information gathered for Lokanath Goswami, but I do know a few things that I've heard or read. So we'll just quickly, briefly jump on those, discuss those important factors of his appearance and disappearance, and then go back to Srimad Bhagavatam. So Lokanath Goswami is very, very exalted personality. We all know Narottam Das Thakur because we every morning sing glorious songs composed by Narottam Das Thakur. You know, the Guru Puja we sing, Shri Guru Charana Padma, that's written by Narottam Das Thakur, composed by him, and he sings Lokanath Lokera Jivana. He's paying obeisances in respects to his spiritual master. So Lokanath Goswami did not have any other disciples other than Narottam Das Thakur. That was one of the reasons for his appearance. When he was traveling, Lord Chaitanya actually asked him to stay in Vrindavan and worship, and one day Narottam Das, one great person will come and he will take shelter of you. So his appearance was already destined to be a great teacher for a great teacher in our tradition. So this is how it works. So Lokanath Swami is Lokanath Goswami is one of the elite. He's one of the senior most Goswamis, right? And he is a great worshipper. He had Krishna himself appeared in the form of Shri Radha Vinod, that Lokanath Goswami's personal deities of Vrindavan, where he would worship Shri Radha Vinod, and Radha Vinod is his, he would do everything to worship properly Shri Radha Vinod. So that's one of the reasons, one of the most exalted personalities, Lokanath Goswami. He said, it's a beautiful line, right? Lokanath Goswami said, "One who reads Srimad Bhagavatam is my friend." That's his famous line. One who reads Srimad Bhagavatam is my friend. Right, so it shows the great features and great qualities of a great acharya. He's saying, who reads Srimad Bhagavatam is my friend. So he's a great worshipper of Krishna, and also he's a great worshipper of Srimad Bhagavatam. So that's why I thought before starting Bhagavatam, we would discuss this, because we pay our respects to this great acharya who worships Srimad Bhagavatam, who says Srimad Bhagavatam, one who reads Srimad Bhagavatam is my friend. So we're all reading Srimad Bhagavatam right now, so we can consider ourselves friends of Lokanath Goswami. But one should read it sincerely. He also mentions that one should be sincere in performing devotional service and reading Bhagavatam. Because there's a very beautiful pastime when Lokanath Goswami was traveling. So when Lord Chaitanya went on his traveling mission, when he went to South India, Lokanath Goswami, I don't know where he was at that time, but he also followed Lord Chaitanya, trying to find and meet Lord Chaitanya. But he couldn't meet him anywhere, so he went to Vrindavan, and when he was in Vrindavan, he realized, he just heard that Lord Chaitanya just left Vrindavan. When we hear these stories of great leaders following Lord Chaitanya, sometimes every time they go somewhere, Lord Chaitanya just left. I was hearing what some other Vaishnavas also, and he would say Lord Chaitanya just left, and then Lord Chaitanya appears in the dream and tells him to stay in Vrindavan. So Lord Chaitanya appears in the dream of Lokanath Goswami and tells him to stay in Vrindavan, because there's a beautiful task that he has to perform, which comes in the future, and Narottam Das Thakur comes, and all that pastime happens. So Lokanath Goswami stayed in Vrindavan because of the instruction of Lord Chaitanya, although he was missing very dearly the association of Lord Chaitanya. And so he stayed there and worshipped and founded the temple of the worship of Radha Vinod. So this is a great, and there's another very beautiful quality of Lokanath Goswami. He did not want any fame or recognition, right? So we know this whole pastime of when Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Maharaj wanted to ask him and narrate Chaitanya Charitamrita he went to Lokanath Goswami to get more information on the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. But Lokanath Goswami clearly said not to mention my name anywhere in this beautiful scripture, because he did not want any fame or recognition. He was very, very exalted, very simple person. He wouldn't do anything that would bring him attention rather than bring attention to Lord Chaitanya. So this is a very great quality of humility that we learn from this exalted soul. And, this is a similar topic that we are discussing as well. So we'll just go to the Bhagavatam, because that's all I have heard of glories of Lokanath Goswami. If you need more details, you can consult a senior devotee from Mayapur or someone who knows all these great pastimes. So I've just heard a little bit knowledge, so this is thought I'll just share a little glories of Lokanath Goswami. And so he said to read Bhagavatam, so we'll just discuss back on Bhagavatam. So today we have a very beautiful topic in hand. We've been discussing about the 4 orders of society: Brahmanas, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and Shudras. So we have covered on Kshatriyas and Brahmanas and Kshatriyas. Today we have the topic of Vaishyas. So we know Vaishyas are supposed to be involved in it's the mercantile class. They're supposed to be involved in agriculture, cow protection, business, because that's one of the duties of a Vaishya, right? It's in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna mentions that, right? Anyone remember the Sanskrit verse where it says? Yes. Trying to find the number. Do you remember the number of that verse? 4:3. Yes, 1844. Krishi go rakshya vanijam vaishya karma swabhavamjam. Farming, cow protection, and business are the natural work for the Vaishyas. Right? Farming, cow protection, and business are the natural work for the Vaishyas. So, if Krishna, there's another beautiful point to discuss, that Krishna has already given the duty of, we need to understand the point of performing our duty. Because in today's time, everyone is engaged in sense gratification. People are performing activities not for the sake of duty, but to make more money, more sense enjoyment. Where there is higher sense enjoyment, people tend to engage in those activities. Back in the day, I remember when India got freedom from British, right? When the freedom came, 86% of the population was engaged in agriculture, because that was the only means of living, right? Prabhupada gives examples many places that, back in the day in India, you just had 1 cow or 2 cows, some cows, and just a little bit of land, and you were able to survive yourself. There's no other dramas needed in life. Because sustenance is the key, right? And just by having few cows, you can just get some milk, and just be nourished fully. There's if you come to a Hare Krishna temple, you never probably have ever seen more qualities or more products of milk that has been used. So milk is like a great product of nourishment and sustenance, but I won't go into that, because now there's another debate or arguments regarding that. So this is, I'm just saying on general term what Prabhupada has mentioned. So it's easy for a Vaishya or a person engaged in these activities of the mercantile class activities to sometimes get caught up in attachment with the product. Like, for example, Kshatriyas, we know, they are kings and emperors, so sometimes they're very opulent. They're very luxurious lifestyle, very opulent lifestyle for a Kshatriya. Like we know these great kings, they usually tend to have more opulence. But in Vaishya, because for a Vaishya, they're always thinking money, They're always trying to think about making money in the business class. So one should not get too caught up with, just thinking about, it's good if you want to think about money. That's the quality of a Vaishya, is to always think of. Prabhupada says in one of the purports in the Bhagavad Gita, one of these texts, he says that a Vaishya sometimes have to lie, He says sometimes that a Vaishya would say, because he has to make profit. Sometimes the Vaishya would say, I'm giving you the right price, even though if something is $10, he's going to give you for $20 and he'll say, I'm giving you the right price. So sometimes to make profit, to run a business, a Vaishya has to be diplomatic, he has to lie, right? But that doesn't mean, even though that's a bad quality, lying, he still has to do it to run a business successfully, to make profit. So it is okay. It's okay for a Vaishya to do that. But a Brahmana should not do that. So that's the point Prabhupada's making. When one is inclined for his duty, he should just focus on that duty and has to do whatever has to be done to perform that duty. But Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, right, that it's better to do your duty imperfectly than do someone else's duty perfectly. So it's better to do your duty imperfectly. But one may wonder, in Kali Yuga, everyone probably does wonder, what is the duty? What is my duty? I go to a job that I probably don't like, but it's giving good money, it's giving good income, so I should stay to that job. Is that my duty? Depends what you do with the result of that duty. First of all, our whole society, of Vedic society, is actually based on your qualities. If you have the quality to perform a particular task, for example, it doesn't matter if you're born in a Brahmana family, but if you have no inclination toward Brahmana lifestyle or Brahmana behavior, you shouldn't engage to be a Brahmana. Instead, you should engage in the activity that you probably like to fight, or argue, or debate, all these things. I mean, even Brahmanas debates and argue with the spiritual context, but if you want to fight, if you have like a more aggressive nature, not, because the qualities of Brahmanas is to be calm, steady, learned. If you don't have those qualities, and if you have more qualities of a Kshatriya, then it's better to engage in the activities of being a Kshatriya rather than engage in the so-called Brahmanical activities that you want to perform because you are appeared in a Brahmana family. So this is what Krishna is mentioning, that it's better to do your duty imperfectly. So one can easily be confused with that, like one can easily get confused and think, because I'm born in a Brahmana family, I should just be a Brahmana. My whole life is set. Like in India, many times we see that, if you go, if someone's in a Brahmana family, I remember, it wasn't exactly my situation with someone, but someone told me that they were speaking to someone, and he had no interest in, because in India, when there's a death in a family, they go to Haridwar or these spiritual places to, do the last rites of the family, of the departed person. So someone was telling me that they met this Brahmana, who was just performing these mantras, doing his thing, and he said, I have no inclination, I have no interest on being a Brahmana, but I just had to do because my father, that's all I've learned from my father, so that's all I know how to do. So if one is not inclined, then he would not be faithful, would not be very dedicated. If you don't have some interest in something, if you don't think that's your nature, one would not perform sincerely that particular task. You may, if you are inclined to something, even though you'll make mistakes sometimes, but you will love those mistakes because you've done it with the true heart and true devotion and true faith in that particular thing. But if you don't have any interest in a particular thing, you would be pretty much like what we see outside today. 80% of the population don't like their jobs, or maybe more. So it's just a random figure. So don't quote me on that. So I'm just saying, you can go ask, because I've spoken to so many people. If you go on book distribution, you stop any random person, who stops, and you speak to them, they would not be satisfied with the work, right? Because they're not happy in their job, because they're not engaged as they should be engaged. Instead, they are engaged just for sense gratification. It gives good money, it's a good pay, but that doesn't mean you should continue that job. Even in Kali Yuga, we have so many these great speakers and these great, human resource managers who always talk about, you should always engage in an activity that you like. That's your strengths. But how much is that possible? I used to use this joke back at the day, You study, 5 years in your particular degree, get a degree, full interest in that field, and usually that field is not hiring. Yes, so you switch to some other field. Like I know this guy from USA that he spent about 150K or something on his student loan, because education in USA is super expensive, especially if you want to pursue those high areas, like lawyer or something. So he became a lawyer, he got a law degree, but he was working at Macca's, he was working at McDonald's to pay off that student loan, because it was hard to, there was no hiring going on, and it's hard to get a job as a lawyer, in beginner's lawyer. So he was working in Macca's, he was super depressed, so spent so much money, and all he's doing is working at McDonald's to pay off his student loan, because there's no potential job opportunities available. So this is how things run in Kali Yuga. It's all confusion, there's a lot of drama. That's why we should understand the point of the Vedic philosophy, this Vedic system of society. One may judge, one may debate that, there's so much divisions, like we hear sometimes people say that there's so much class segregation, there's so much divisions, there's so much caste system in Vedic times, So, like even in India now, when they hear about these caste systems, because they don't understand, right? They don't understand how it was set up, what the design is. Like, for example, myself, growing up in India, we do talk about caste system. There's still caste system going on, but it's very, very disturbed. Because, of course, the caste system was based around, like Prabhupada says, the Brahmanas wouldn't work and wouldn't do. They would be focused on giving the spiritual education to the whole, running the society properly through the spiritual realizations. But now we don't have those Brahmanas with those spiritual realizations. We don't have that fully qualified Brahmanas that can run a society. And now the society is not even run by Brahmanas, so it's run by Shudras. So when the society is run by Shudras, there is no knowledge, there is no wisdom, there is no guidance in the system. The only thing you will receive is disturbance, So that's what we see currently, that's been happening. But see, we don't know this as growing up as kid. When you don't have the education, if you don't have the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, you just simply get confused and lost. What's going on in the society? Everything is a disturbance. So this whole idea that, these are culturally, all these baggages are coming from like being pushed on for so many years, and that just creates disturbance and havoc in our heads. Like we speak about these ritualistic ceremonies still performed as dowry or other aspects in India, which are still kind of very strongly built. And see, we don't understand the concept, how it was done. Because everything in the Vedas was done as plus time, place, and circumstances, but then situations kept on changing. But people still, like for example, what I'm trying to say is that when I would question my parents about a particular ritualistic activity performed, right, they would not have a proper answer. The only answer they would have is, that's how we learned it, from our family. So that's what we're trying to teach. So there is no science or there is no understanding of why things are done the way it's done. So that causes disturbance, because we are born in an age where everything has to be neutral. You have to be gender neutral, you have to be this neutral, that neutral. You have to be very cautious of how you speak. You can offend one person, try not to offend this. So when you're born in that society, you always question, always trying to find faults. Because this is the age of Kali, and the glories of age of Kali is to find faults in others. So that's what the Vedas are teaching us, because they're trying to give us the proper understanding of the divisions of society. It makes sense, right? If you think about it, it makes sense. A person who's spiritually advanced, skillful, should run the society. Because, why were the first created beings were Angira Muni and all Narad Muni and all these great sages? Could have been some Kshatriyas or some Shudras. No. The first created beings were Brahmanas, because they were supposed to guide the society. What is the goal of life? To understand what is life really worth? What's the point of life? What is the point of living? Why have we appeared, So that's why when the first created beings were in the form of these great munis and sages, so they can give us the direction, they can show us the way for the other society, the other classes, to run a successful society. Because a society is not run by one particular individual. You cannot run a successful society. A society, as I think Ganesham Prabhu was mentioning this point, that all four classes have to be in sync. All the different orders of society need to be in a proper sync. Because as soon as the link is missing, it will cause disturbance, which we are seeing right now. So if the Brahmanas are not qualified, guess what will happen? The society will be misguided, misdirected. If the Kshatriyas are not qualified, there will be no protection. There will be chaos. If you think about it, in many countries we see when they don't have a proper structure, there is usually chaos, right? And if there is no proper Vaishyas, people will be hungry because their main job is to feed all the three societies. So imagine if you don't have the proper Vaishyas, like, someone's duty is to grow food and he's like arguing, I don't like this job, it's too hot, it's 100 degrees outside. I don't want to work in 100 degrees. I want some indoor job. Sit in a laptop. That's better. I want to do that sort of a job, because it's much easier. If a person thinks like that, who's going to feed you? Because not everyone is qualified or has the bodily structure of running a farm, or because if you go to a farm, if you ever go to a farm, you'll see it's a difficult job. It's very physical task. It could be very challenging in Australian heat or Indian heat, but one has to perform his duty no matter what, So there's another beautiful point that comes in mind is that one should do it for Krishna, right? Whatever your duty is should be performed for the pleasure or the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, Kshatriyas have a nature, diplomatic nature, as I was saying. Vaishyas sometimes are supposed to lie to run a business, which are bad qualities, but they still have to be performed to run a business. But if it's giving benefit to the Supreme Lord by offering the results to the Supreme Lord of that particular activity. If you're a Vaishya, sometimes you may get caught up, like, I'm making money, the money's coming in, I'm providing food to everyone, So you may get puffed up, you may get these ideas and you may think, oh, well, I'm not giving it to anyone else, I'm just keeping it for myself, So that's what caused disturbance, because now you're doing it for your own benefit, not for the benefit of Supreme Personality of Godhead. So these are the things we should be careful about, we do have examples of Vaishyas or, mercantile class who are still very honest, who wouldn't even pursue any of these negative qualities, right? One of the closest associates of Lord Chaitanya, Sridhar, Kolavesha Sridhar, he wouldn't even lie. He wouldn't even give wrong prices. He would give the right prices, exactly the right prices for a product, right? If he's selling something, he'd give you exactly the right price. No one even would negotiate. No one would bargain with him. Because the whole place, the whole area knows whatever price you will get from him is the best price. There's no one else who can give you a better price because he'll be super honest. But still, Lord Chaitanya will come to him and try to bargain the price and give him like low prices for something that is already a standard price. So imagine this beautiful pastime Lord Chaitanya is performing with his devotee or his close associate. Because we may think it in many different ways, but it's just the pastime of the Supreme Lord. Imagine Sridhar is hitting Lord Chaitanya, pushing him back, trying to pull the product from his hand because Lord Chaitanya is not giving him the right price, and he said, I'm going to be in losses, so I have to make money on at least the same amount of money to give you, but Lord Chaitanya wouldn't give him, and he's pushing Lord Chaitanya back, and he's like, please get physical. So one may wonder, what's going on, one may get confused. So, but that's just for the sake of pleasure that Krishna gets in the association of his devotees. So it's a very beautiful pastime of Sridhar He's a very sincere and very great devotee of Lord Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya would perform his ecstatic kirtan, sankirtan, from one place to another, and he usually stop. That would be the last stop, right? At his place, and everyone would take rest, eat nicely, sumptuously, and then there'll be beautiful discussions and connections with Lord Chaitanya and Sridhar. So this is these pastimes are very beautiful. If you one who reads Chaitanya Charitamrita will be very satisfied with these pastimes of Lord Chaitanya with his associates, because these are something we can conceive, right? Like when we hear Krishna's pastimes of killing these thousands of demons, like a little kid, in the air. These sometimes it seems way far out for us to conceive, because it's Krishna. Everything has to be something to confuse you, something to question you. Because if Krishna's pastimes were that easy to conceive, everyone would be a devotee. There would be no jnana yogis or speculators or, these other aspects. So only the devotees who will still have faith and determination in understanding the pastimes of Krishna are qualified, right? Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam. The one who understands the nature of my appearance and my pastimes is qualified to come back to my spiritual world. If everyone understands, then everyone will qualify. So that's why Krishna makes things a little difficult. But Lord Chaitanya's pastimes are very easy. But they're hidden though. That's the success. That's the secret of Lord Chaitanya's pastime. They are hidden. They're not available to everyone. If you go to India, hardly people know Lord Chaitanya. Even though there's so much preaching going on, still hardly people know any pastime or anything about Lord Chaitanya. Now, I never heard. I grew up about 21 years in India span, never heard of Lord Chaitanya. I've heard the word Chaitanya. I know some famous person, but I don't know any pastime or any secrecy of this pastimes of Lord Chaitanya. So that's why these pastimes, because when you read the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya, one automatically become very attracted. I remember the first time I heard the pastimes of Lord Chaitanya performing his Sankirtan pastimes or debate pastimes at Nimai Pandit, when he would go around debating with everyone, and everyone would be like, we can't defeat this kid, and they would try to change the sides of the road. Like I remember once when Lord Chaitanya was passing, Nimai Pandit was passing through the street, and Mukunda Datta, his great associate, saw Lord Chaitanya coming, Nimai Pandit coming. He's like, I can't deal with him because he's going to stop me and then start this whole question and answer session about the Shastra, and I cannot deal with this right now, So he would not see him. He would just run away. And Lord Chaitanya will catch whoever he catches, sometimes Nimai Pandit will catch a random person, stop him and start asking these questions about the Shastra. So everyone was so these beautiful pastimes, just, something that we can relish as a devotee, because they're not performed 5,000 years ago. They performed 500 years ago. So it's pretty close. It's not too far, for us to, it's not a different yuga, it's actually the same yuga. So we can try to understand the aspect, So these are the pastimes that we should try and spend our time and our energy reading. Because when we are reading these beautiful pastimes, we are slowly becoming Krishna conscious. When Lord Chaitanya says we should purify the heart, how are we going to purify our heart unless we're reading these pastimes? Because these pastimes are very purifying. When you see these dealings of a devotee and the Lord, you can relish it as a devotee. You can relish these pastimes. But we shouldn't take these we shouldn't have the mentality of questioning these pastimes, like how bona fide are they, or what, I don't know if that actually happened, maybe could be explained in a certain way. Because these thoughts will come for a beginner in Kali Yuga who's trying to begin his bhakti practice. These doubts and these questions will always come because we are coming from a strong influence of Maya. But we shouldn't get caught up. We should just read. Prabhupada says Krishna book is only meant for enjoyment. If you want to enjoy, read Krishna book or read Lord Chaitanya's pastime. Many times people are not inclined towards philosophy. When I was new, I wasn't even inclined to reading anything. I wasn't inclined at all. I just thought, yes, chanting is nice, devotees are nice, association is good. then when slowly associating with those devotees who are actually reading and understanding and relishing, because they wouldn't speak, a true devotee, a great devotee, would not talk anything other than Krishna conscious information. So that's the whole area of discussion he will have. And I have seen some devotees, for them, the center is always Krishna. They will only talk about Krishna. Whatever you try to speak to them, they will somehow bring it back to Krishna. So when you associate with those devotees, that's when you understand, okay, well, maybe I should also try and relish or see what this other person is saying. And then we automatically get inclined. Now, I try to read every day. It's only been, 4 years or 5 years of started my practice. No interest. I've never even read my whole school books. What to speak of reading outside, Bhagavad Gita. Like, for example, many times we see people, we meet on the streets, on book distribution, usually Indians, they would say, I know everything about Bhagavad Gita. You try to show them a Bhagavad Gita. I know everything about Bhagavad Gita. I'm so amazed now, because I probably would say the same thing 5 years ago when I would have met devotees on the streets. But now it's so different, because every day we try to read and there's some new information that comes up. There's some new realization that comes up. So these things just make us know, wow, it's full of, it's transcendental, it's unlimited, right? Because this knowledge is transcendental. Anything transcendental is unlimited because it's coming from Krishna. So we should just spend a little time, at least a little time. If you're not inclined towards reading, that's okay. Just read stories, spiritual stories. Read stories of Prahlad, Parikshit, all these great Dhruva, all these great people. Just read something Krishna conscious. People usually try to focus on Ramayana and Mahabharata, but try to come to Bhagavatam, because Bhagavatam is the essence. Bhagavatam is the goal of life. As Lokanath Swami said, those who read Bhagavatam are my friend. So let's just try to be friends of Lokanath Goswami. So I'll stop here. It's almost time. If there's any questions, comments, corrections you'd like to address. Right, we'll end here. Granth Raj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.